So I'm going to start the podcast by speaking directly into the void for a minute to a specific set of ears I know are out there. Though I'll leave your names unspoken, you know who you are. You threw your sharpest words at me, told me to take the final walk. I won't pretend it didn't land, but here's the thing. I heard the tremor underneath your shouts. It is the echo that gave you away. You mock me for unraveling the Metatron Sandalphon mechanism knot, for finding a foothold in a cosmology you were taught to gatekeep, simply because I love differently than you. But your rage at my discovery isn't really about me, it's about the crisis of meaning it triggers in you. Because if someone like me, a gay man, can brush against the divine machinery and walk away whole, what does that do to your own script? That existential vertigo you are radiating? It is kinda loud, and I believe it's not about me at all. So let me cut through it. Stop. Are you okay? I'm asking genuinely and not rhetorically. I need you to pick up a phone, call your mom, your old friend, your neighbor, whoever still holds a frayed thread of care for you, and then call a professional, a therapist, a crisis line. I am not qualified to carry this weight for you, but I am fully qualified to point you toward those who are. And I want you to hear this clearly. I see you. I don't see your armor, and I certainly don't see your slurs. I see the sheer exhaustion hiding behind the cruelty. Now, here's a darkly pragmatic thought, and I offer it not as encouragement, but really as a mirror. If you're truly irreversibly set on the exit, at least do it the human way. Seek out euthanasia, which is medical aid in dying. Why? Because I'm not Catholic. I don't believe a violent, lonely, agonizing end buys you any redemption. But here's the kicker. Pursuing euthanasia forces you to talk to doctors, to wait through evaluations, to sit in a sterile, boring waiting room. And in that pause, I suspect you might find a reason to walk back outside into the sun. So if you're listening, survive the day. Let the professionals do their job and know that I hold no grudge. Just a heavy, quiet hope that you stick around to see what comes next. I'm Michael Wenas, and this is Necrology. I'll see you in the next segment. Okay, so bear with me for a second because today we're going somewhere that lives right on the border between cultural criticism, occult history, and I promise this is going somewhere short and sweet. We're talking about Sabrina Carpenter and Babalon. And no, I'm not gonna ask you to put on a tinfoil hat. I'm gonna ask you to put on your feminist theory hat, your pussy hats, which is honestly way more interesting. So, for the uninitiated, Babalon, spelled Babalon, no second Y, is a figure from Thelemic occultism, which is the religious philosophical system developed by Aleister Crowley in the early 20th century. She's sometimes called the Scarlet Woman, or the Mother of Abominations, and she is, depending on your perspective, either a terrifying symbol of moral corruption or, and this is the reading I find way more interesting, a goddess of radical feminine liberation. Crowley himself described Babalon as the embodiment of the feminine divine unleashed. She is unapologetically sexual. She exists outside the control of men, institutions, the church. She is sovereign over her own desire. In Thelemic cosmology, she holds a cup, and in it she collects the blood of the saints, the energy of initiates who have surrendered their ego to something larger. She is, in a word, untamable. Now, where does Sabrina Carpenter come in? Let me introduce you to Jack Parsons. Not the youngest director in the world. No, Jack Parsons, as in the founder of Jet Propulsion's lab. Jack Parsons was a literal rocket scientist, one of the founders of NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Brilliant guy, also a devoted Thelemite who in 1946 conducted a ritual called the Babalon working alongside a young L. Ron Hubbard. Yes, that L. Ron Hubbard, pre-Scientology in the Mojave Desert. The goal, to invoke the spirit of Babalon into physical form, to birth essentially a scarlet woman into the material world. And they thought it was gonna be American poet and artist Marjorie Cameron. I guess not. Now, here's where the conspiratorial thread gets woven in, and I want to be really clear. I'm not saying any of this is true as a literal claim. I'm saying it is fascinating as a symbolic frame. There are corners of the internet that have connected Sabrina Carpenter through her aunt, the woman who voiced Bart Simpson, who has documented ties to the Church of Scientology, back to L. Ron Hubbard. Her name is Nancy Cartwright. The logic goes, Hubbard participated in the Babalon working. Hubbard founded Scientology. Scientology connects through family lineage to Sabrina. Therefore, Sabrina is the Babalon. I mean, it is a stretch. Genealogically and causally, it is absolutely a stretch, but symbolically, oh, there's something there. And that's what I actually want to dig into. Before the emails I can't send, before short and sweet, Sabrina Carpenter spent years in the Disney pipeline, the same machine that produced Britney Spears, Miley Cyrus, Demi Lovato, Selena Gomez, etc., etc. And there's this striking visual motif that runs through her early, more independent work. Imagery directly lifted from Eyes Wide Shut. If you haven't seen it, Eyes Wide Shut is Kubrick's final film, a psychosexual thriller about secret societies, ritualistic mass ceremonies, elite power, and the limits of male control in the face of female mystery. The masked ball at its center has become the cultural shorthand for occult elite gatherings. Sabrina's early visual work, particularly her debut album, Eyes Wide Open, wink wink, around the Can't Blame a Girl for Trying EP and some of her styling choices around 2020 and 2021 leaned hard into that aesthetic. Venetian masks, red and black ceremonial costuming, eyes covered, the iconography of hidden knowledge. Now, the conspiracy reading says this is programming and this is elite signaling. This is a young woman being used as a vessel for something she doesn't understand. My reading says, watch what she does next. Because what Sabrina Carpenter did next was write espresso and please, please, please and taste. and an entire album built around a woman who is completely, cheerfully in control of her sexuality, her narrative, her image. An album where, if men disappoint her, she shrugs. Where desire is hers to direct, where she is nobody's vessel, she is the one holding the cup. That is the Babalon arc. Not as conspiracy really, but really as a character journey. The Babalon of Thelemic tradition isn't a victim of the occult, she is the occult. She's the force that dissolves the ego of anyone who encounters her and refuses to be contained by it. She is, essentially, the feminine principle that cannot be domesticated by religious, social, or patriarchal systems, which, if we're honest, is exactly what the Disney industrial complex represents. Britney went through the machine and it broke her, at least for a while. Miley blew it up. Sabrina, she seems to have alchemized it. She came out the other side of years of being managed, packaged, and positioned for consumption, and she turned that whole experience into fuel for an era that is entirely, unmistakably hers. I'm not suggesting Sabrina Carpenter is a literal occult avatar sent from the Mojave Desert to fulfill Jack Parsons' ritual, but I am suggesting that the reason this conspiracy theory sticks, the reason people reach for this mythological language when talking about her, is because she radiates something that our culture doesn't quite have a secular vocabulary for. A young woman who is fully, freely herself, who isn't performing innocence and isn't performing damage, who looks at an industry built to consume women and says, actually, I'll have the espresso. The patriarchal imagination needs to call that something. It needs to explain it, contain it, give it a sinister origin story, because a woman who is simply sovereignly free, with no handler, no trauma arc, no cautionary tale, is apparently almost supernatural. Babalon, baby. Maybe she's not the embodiment of a 1946 desert ritual. Maybe she's just what happens when a woman survives the machine and decides to run it herself. And if that's a cult, then honestly, honey, initiate me. See you on the next segment. This is Michael Wenas, this is Necrology, and this is the last segment. I've spent this show cataloging things that die, ideas, movements, empires, people's patience. Tonight, I want to talk about something that's dying slowly enough that most people mistake it for being alive. An economic system, and the theater governments put on so you don't notice the body's already cold. Let's start in Orenburg. Late June 2026, a court in a mid-sized Russian city hands down sentences to 3 people who ran a nightclub called Pose. The owner, Vyacheslav Kasanov, 7 years. The manager, Diana Kamilyanova, 6 years and 3 months. The art director, Alexander Klimov, 2 years and 3 months. Their crime on paper was organizing and participating in the activities of an extremist organization. Their crime, in practice, was hosting drag shows. This is the first criminal conviction under Russia's 2023 designation of the, and I want to be precise about the absurdity here, the international LGBT movement. A movement that does not exist in any kind of registered organization anywhere, being treated as extremist in the same legal category as terrorist cells. The trial was held behind closed doors. None of the 3 admitted guilt. Here's what I want you to sit with. This is happening in a country whose economy is, by its own president's admission, stalling out. growth cut to a crawl, inflation forced down through interest rates so punishing they're strangling small businesses, food prices climbing over 20% even as headline inflation quote-unquote improves, a budget deficit that keeps widening because the war machine has to be fed and there's less oil money to feed it, construction down double digits, manufacturing contracting in 20 out of 24 tracked industries, real wages, once you adjust for inflation, essentially frozen. Some economists are now calling it what the government won't, a recession. And into that vacuum steps a drag bar owner in Orenburg, sentenced to 7 years. Marx wrote that religion is the opium of the masses, a phrase everyone quotes and almost nobody finishes because the next line is the interesting one. It's the sigh of the oppressed creature, the heart of a heartless world. Substitute religion for moral panic, and you have the entire operating logic of a regime running out of runway. When you can't fix the currency, you fix the enemy. When people can't afford pelmeni, you give them someone to blame for not being able to afford it. And it's never the man eating his pelmeni off gold leaf in a dacha outside Moscow. It's the guy running a club 4 time zones away. Because let's be honest about who's actually protecting traditional values in that country. The gays are not the danger to the Kremlin. The closeted gay men inside it, the ones enforcing the laws by day and living entirely different lives by night. Those are the load-bearing hypocrisies keeping the whole structure standing. The scapegoat was never about morality. It was about misdirection. Look at the queer kid in the club, not at the ledger. I'd love to tell you this is a uniquely Russian pathology. Sadly, it isn't. It's mine too. In Indonesia, my country, and next door in Malaysia, the same play runs on a loop. Economic anxiety rises. Corruption stories break, a currency wobbles, and suddenly there's a raid in some random hotel room, a moral panic on social media, a minister giving a fiery statement about protecting the nation's youth from quote-unquote LGBT propaganda. My community becomes the pressure valve. It's cheaper than reform, it's faster than accountability, and it works. Because outrage is a renewable resource and shame is easy to weaponize in a culture that already runs on it. Meanwhile, the actual bleeding keeps happening quietly off camera, which brings me to Mr. G. Mr. G was an Indian businessman who spent time cultivating relationships inside the Indonesian government, presenting himself, depending on who was in the room, as a well-connected financier, a facilitator of major deals, and at various points someone with ties to American intelligence. He let people believe what was useful for them to believe. Officials who should have run background checks instead ran on vibes and proximity to power. Deals were entertained, doors were opened, trust was extended on the basis of a story nobody verified. And when it fell apart the way these things always do. Quietly, with everyone involved suddenly very busy and unavailable for comment. Nobody got 7 years for that. Nobody's economy collapsed in the viral thread of outrage over it. It just sort of evaporated from the news cycle, the way institutional failure always does when there's no telegenic villain attached to it. Compare the column inches given to a drag bar raid against the column inches given to a government getting played by a man with a good suit and a better story, and you'll understand exactly what a society has decided is worth being angry about. Capitalism, in the form most of us live under, isn't dying in a dramatic collapse. It's dying the way most things die in real life, slowly, from 1,000 small refusals to look at the actual problem. Every time a state needs a villain it can't afford to name, it reaches for someone it can. Sanctioned economies do it, developing democracies do it. My own country does it to my own community on a schedule like clockwork whenever the headlines get uncomfortable. The real threat was never a nightclub in Orenburg or a bar in Jakarta. It's a system that needs someone smaller than itself to blame, because the people actually responsible are never, ever in the room when the bill comes due. This has been Necrology. I'm Michael Wenas. Thank you for listening to all of it.